This is the E-commerce Edge podcast with your host, Jason Greenwood. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the E-commerce Edge podcast with me, Jason Greenwood, your host. And I have another, as always, incredible guest lined up for you today. I would love to welcome SHARAT Potharaju from Uniqode to the podcast. Welcome, Sharat.
Hey, Jason. Thanks for having me over. Excited to be speaking with you today.
My pleasure to have you along with me for the ride today. And you said that you split time between India and New York. You're back in New York now, and you said you've definitely had some snow already this season.
Oh yeah, absolutely did. It almost snowed yesterday too, but I'm happy that the day looks sunny and bright today.
Love it, love it. I'm looking out the side window of my terrace here, and it's sunny and warm here in Puebla City, Mexico as well. It's a bright blue, clear sky with the sun shining. So any day you wake up and the sun is shining, it's bound to be a good day, right?
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. I don't think, unfortunately, our weather is nice and warm as yours, but I can't complain sitting in New York.
Love it. Love it. Listen, before we get into Uniqode and what you do and how you do it and what sets you apart in the market, how did you get into this space? Because you come from a banking and sort of merchant, you do have an entrepreneurial background, but you also have an investing background and a merchant banking background. So how, and you also have some experience with marketing, comms. So you've got a really varied business background. I'll just put it under the main umbrella of business. But how did you decide to get into I would almost consider it a pivot in a way, to get into the tech space, particularly into the tech side of commerce and creating enablement technology that acts as key middleware? How did you decide to make that pivot into this world?
Got it. Yeah, no, I think the way you defined it is very true. Interestingly enough, I'm actually an engineer by education. So I actually did my undergrad in engineering, also did my master's in engineering management from Duke. But having said that, I started my career in investment banking at Merrill Lynch, again, from in New York. And that's because as a young graduate, you typically tend to be told that banking and consulting are the ways to broaden your horizons. And that's really what I did, started doing that. But always wanted to be an entrepreneur, always excited to build a business, was always thrilled about building a product or building a company in technology. So I co-founded Uniqode with my friend and classmates for over 30 years. My co-founder is someone I know from fifth grade. So we went to school, undergrad. We're also roommates in New York for a bit. So always wanted to build a technology company, always wanted to build a global product company. And for about a decade and built various kinds of products for about 10 years, experienced spectacular failures building first set of our products till we arrived at Uniqode, which has taken off really well. So I think to your specific question, how did we get to what we do at Uniqode? I think the idea was when we went down the path of thinking about entrepreneurship and wanting to build products, the thing that came to us very naturally was we wanted to do something in mobile, right? And if you rewind back to 2010, 2011, maybe a decade ago, we realized that mobile is really taking off. And since we come from India, where mobile was the primary internet device, that there was a generation of people who were using or accessing internet for the very first time on the mobile. We were excited about the prospects of what mobile can do. And all the products that we built, the ones which were failures or had mediocre success, all were in the realm of mobile. And what we wanted to do was think about what can mobile really solve for brands, for businesses, for consumers, and went down that path. And when we came to Uniqode, the way we started with this, the learnings we had of building various products was, hey, you need to be really focused on solving a specific problem than rather being obsessed about the solution. And then we basically asked ourselves the harder part on what is the problem that we want to be able to solve now? What is a bigger problem that mobile will really solve for us? And the learning we had from that was the whole idea that when mobile started, it started with the idea of consuming content then went to consuming commerce. And the next third natural thing was we believe that mobile will play a role in connecting the physical and digital world, or mobile will become the center of your physical world. How will it enhance the experience in your physical world? So we built a platform or a stack that took all the technologies on the mobile device, like NFC, Bluetooth, QR codes, geofencing, Wi-Fi, etc., and build a stack which brands and businesses can really use to to drive engagement, generate leads, etc. And as we evolved that product is when how we came to the genesis of Uniqode, because we realized that QR codes really took off in a very big way for several reasons. And as we say, the rest is history.
Wow, what a journey. And I think you're right. And what's interesting is now, because I grew up in California, lived in New Zealand for almost 30 years, been living in Mexico for the last 2 years. And what we witnessed over, say, the last 15 years in India seems to be playing out today, almost like a carbon copy rollout of a similar sort of transition technology-wise in Mexico today, which is that in India, a lot of your regular citizens, they went straight from no internet access or not necessarily even having a desktop computer, all of a sudden to having a supercomputer in their hand, being able to be net connected, even if they were in a remote village somewhere, remote town, remote city somewhere, they could instantly become connected to the internet and connected to all their friends, connected to their community, connected to commerce, and they skipped over several intermediate generations of technology and the earliest days of crappy dial-up internet and everything else. A lot of Indians never had to face that. They never had to deal
That's
with
correct.
they never had to deal with a crappy internet experience. They jumped straight into a full-blown mobile first internet connected world. And I'm even seeing that here in Mexico. I'm seeing that if I go down to the Zocalo, the town square in any town, even a small remote town in Mexico, even the 80-year-old, 90-year-old men and women, the grandmas and grandpas, they'll be sitting in the town square and they'll be sitting on their cell phone.
Right.
They'll be sitting on their smartphone. And so I feel like the mobile revolution was and is potentially the single most transformational technology of the last 100 years in many respects.
I
And
agree.
we just can't look past that. It is these devices are what single-handedly brought an entire generation of new internet users online in the first place. And it is quite, I think when we pair that reality with the forced usage of QR codes, particularly in the West during COVID, for scanning in, scanning out, all of a sudden you had to get the latest notifications, the latest updates. You had to have the latest frankly rubbish with COVID, in my opinion. I'm a big freedom guy, so the way that New Zealand handled COVID was a travesty as far as I'm concerned. But anyways, putting that aside for the moment, even Western countries that in Asia, my wife's Asian, and so inside Asia, QR codes have been the norm for so
Right.
long. They've been a
Right.
part of daily usage for so long, but in the West, not so much. But during COVID, all of a sudden, it felt like everyone got QR code religion almost overnight. And all of a sudden they realized, man, these QR codes can do so many more things than just link to a web address. They can activate so many experiences that we just were never exposed to as Westerners. Did you see that evolution too? And kind of
Yeah,
put a
absolutely.
rocket under the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. I think QR codes as a technology, as you can, has been around for more than 25 years. It started in Japan and spread across. And the renaissance of QR codes really happened again, I think, over the last 5 years. And that happened for a bunch of different reasons. One, like you rightly said, it's already been a very successful case study in Asia. If you travel in China, etc., you will see QR codes everywhere, right? Whether it's for payments or other use cases. Now, in addition to that, I think the second thing which few people seem to know of is that QR code, the ability to scan a QR code became native to the operating system in 2019, 2018, right? iOS and Android basically made cameras scan QR codes without the need of a third-party app. That was a groundswell moment. We recognized, wow, this is a huge shift. You don't need a third-party app to scan a QR code anymore. And that's when we realized that we got to double click on this. And that's how we double click. And the third part, like you rightly said, is the pandemic, right? The third factor was that the necessity is the mother of invention, as they say. People realize the value of QR codes, and because you did not require a third-party app, people wanted it to be contactless, and QR codes really took off in a big way. And our earliest customers came to us by drawing those analogies to QR codes, saying, "Hey, I scanned a QR code in the restaurant, and it opened a PDF showing the menu. So I was wondering if I put the same QR code on my packaged bottle of water, can it open up and show something else? Or I saw this QR code where I scanned it and it opened a PDF to do something else, or it took me to the website. Can I drop a cookie and collect first party data?" So a lot of it was just learning from first principles. And the power of what QR codes could really do is we basically built a platform that was flexible enough that brands and businesses, as we listen to them, as we collected feedback from them, we kind of built our product in the direction that.
Why do you think it is that even with the rocket-fueled adoption of QR codes during COVID, that the vast majority of retailers, physical retailers now that maybe they've got an online experience and an offline experience, why are they not using QR codes to more tightly link these experiences together? And I'm going to give you just one example. So in a physical retail store, let's say, I don't know, let's say I'm in a department store and let's say I'm looking at air fryers, just as for sake of argument. Now, on the physical retail shelf, they may be able to show 3 or 4 models of air fryer, but they might carry 20 to 50 models of air fryer that's available through their web experience, right? Now, why do they not have a QR code for that category of products physically in the physical space so that if I want to learn more, I can click on the QR code for any one of the individual models that they have on display, but I can see the whole category of air fryers and
100%.
air fryer content and information directly in the physical space and keep me joined between the online and the offline experience. And I just feel like QR codes are a gigantic missed opportunity for retailers to combine and merge the online offline experience and to carry things like carts from the online to the offline experience. And there's a lot of mobile apps that these retailers have that allow you in store to scan a barcode, for example, and learn more about a product. But barcodes are not universal, and they are oftentimes they're not a standardized format. They're not necessarily easily linked to a URL because that's not what they were originally designed to do. Yes, you can link them together in your ERP or your PIM system if you want to, but a barcode is a poor man's QR code when it comes to integrating with digital experiences, right? It's a very poor, I consider it the poor cousin to a QR code when it comes to merging those experiences. Why do you think it is that retailers have just been so slow to integrate online and offline using QR codes as the essential bridge?
No, you hit the nail on the head, and I think there are 2 or 3 different aspects to this, right? One is retailers, as you know better than me, are invariably laggards when it comes to adopting technology. They're not really the fastest industry vertical. The second thing I think is there is a certain amount of value selling that companies like us have to be able to do better. And that's something that we are really working on. We are doing a lot of what we call right now, we're focused only on demand capture. We're not really doing demand generation.
Yes.
But there are millions of people searching every day for QR code related solutions. And those are the only people that we are focusing on because there's enough money to be made there. But I think the entire focus also has to be able to expand the scope of educating customers on what QR codes can do. And the reason I say that is currently the need is very practical. People want to put a QR code on the wall to be able to open up and generate leads. Someone else wants to be able to do that. Right now, for example, without taking specific names, we have a large CPG brand which there are more than 12 different accounts inside the same company. And out of those 12, I think 4 or 5 of them belong to marketing teams. Another 2 or 3 belong to procurement. One more belongs to the admin team. All of them using QR codes, using it for different reasons, and and using it in very tactically in those specific things. There is vertical has not evolved to a stage where there's an enterprise level adoption or enterprise level strategy. That is just the way, if I think about, for example, email as an example, right? When email started as a personal communication tool before the likes of MailChimp or a SendGrid or an Active Campaign or a Constant Contact came along and democratized it into a very robust solution of engagement for customers. The same way the QR is going through that tactical to a strategic evolution. And as that happens, we'll be able to tell more. And I think that's happening. It's happening. There's a groundswell happening. The kinds of questions people are asking, it's also evolved significantly. People came 2 years ago. The questions people used to ask us is, hey, I want to be able to do this. Can I do this with QR codes? Now people come to us and say, I need an enterprise-grade solution. I need single sign-on. I need a SOC 2 compliance. I need this many users. I need this million QR codes, et cetera, et cetera. So the needs have evolved. The needs are matured, and that's the reason I think that that's heading in the right direction. But having said that, you're right. I think it's slower than what I had anticipated, specifically for retail, because I also am a strong believer that there is so much that you can do because you're really converted into inanimate objects like your packaging or your items inside a supermarket or anything like that into channels of engagement, which would be extraordinarily powerful.
Yeah, and the other thing I like about QR codes is that if they're uniquely generated for a specific use case, then you can even embed things like authentication into the URL string. You can have JavaScript web tokens. There's all sorts of things that you can combine in this concept of a URL that then unlocks an experience, right? And I think that's really what you're referring to is instead of just going to a website or a web address that it then opens the browser on your phone, it can actually do many more things. It can actually
Absolutely.
actually prompt for the install of an app, or it can prompt for different engaged experiences. It was so crazy. The very first time I started to get a much better feel for what QR codes could do, this is going back probably, man, it must be at least 10 years ago now. They had this AR VR company had embedded fully AR VR enabled experiences through the
Right.
phone with a static QR code. It opened up a fully interactive 3D experience just
Correct.
when you put the camera over the QR code. It was wild. It was
Right.
absolutely wild. It was the craziest thing I had ever seen done with a QR code before in my life. And I realized right then, okay, hang on a second. This is so much more than just easy access to a web address.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much more to this that it can trigger off. It can make a call to a
Mm-hmm.
service that then generates the experience on the other end. And it can even call APIs, right? So I think that you're right. I think that the biggest challenge is not so much is the technology mature, it's more how can we get the creatives involved and the marketers involved
Right.
in realizing new creative ways to use the technology as opposed to helping to mature the technology.
Correct. No, you're spot on. I think you got the crux of the problem. I think in many ways, right now it is explaining to them the number of things that you can do. One of the things that we're also trying to do right now is explain to each of our customers, saying, "Hey, what you essentially signed up to do QR codes with, but here are 10 other things that you can do, which some of your competitors are doing, and some of your other peers in your industry are doing, which you're not thinking of doing." And that's the way you expand the learning and expand the value selling from just being that tactical piece where you're just getting this job done to thinking about what holistically can QR codes really do. And we're on that journey. It's going to take some time, but totally echo your vision for what QR codes really can unlock for us and for the companies.
Yeah, it seems like the most cutting edge brands and retailers and influencers out there are the ones that are creating. It's almost like the use case for NFTs or
Yeah.
blockchain or anything else. You need the people that have a creative vision. You need the people that have brand power and authority. You need people that are leading the charge to light the way, to light the path of what's possible. And we definitely see some of the biggest, most powerful brands in the world leveraging QR codes in clever ways, to the point where sometimes the ways in which they use QR codes, people will take a video of that experience and then post it to social media because they're like, wow, I've never seen this. I've never seen this use of a QR code before. And it's so cool, so to speak, and it's so pop culture relevant that people will post it to social media because it's so exciting and novel. And I think we have to get to that place before we really see something that is not just a utility, because I think we need to move QR codes out of the realm of just a pure functional technical utility and into the creative space. And when we can do that, then I think we're going to see a whole new unlock of deployments of QR codes in business.
I 100% agree. I think the way I explain to people on what QR codes are is basically I call them the call to action in the physical world. It's what the URLs are in the digital realm. The same thing, they're a call to action in the physical world. And that call to action can be anything. It could be a URL that points to anything. It could be a token. It could be just authentication. It could be just collecting first party data. It could be so many different things. And really the flexibility, the power of it is in the flexibility. And the important thing to keep in mind there is you have to be open-minded about what the possibilities are, and anything that you want to do, you really will be able to achieve it with QR codes.
And when you first set up Uniqode, there were obviously there's been a lot of QR code and quote unquote management platforms out there. In fact, a couple of years ago, we had Bridge on the podcast, and we've investigated a few other QR code management platforms, TrueQR, ScanTrust. There's a few kind of name brand platforms out there that are reasonably well known if you're in the space. Obviously, if you're not in the space, you have no idea what you don't even know what to Google. If you're thinking about using QR codes, like for example, if I didn't work in digital technology and I was just running a retail business and I wanted to start introducing QR codes into my business, I'm not even sure if I would know what to Google to try to find a QR code management platform. And I think that's part of the education process, which is why I like having people like you on the podcast, because I now get to expose this to a broader audience and try to educate people on what's possible. But when you first started Uniqode and you looked out across the market, what was it that you saw out there that you said, okay, cool, maybe there's some other players doing some other things, but we think there's a unique gap here that we can fill with a UVP that is totally unique to us? What was it that you saw as a gap that made you think, man, we need to really try to build a business on top of this?
I think I think what we looked at 3 or 4 years ago versus what we are doing right now also, I think the reality is we are still in very early days. And the broad realization that we had is everything that we've described and discussed so far, which is the larger vision of what QR codes could do versus what was available in the market, was so tactical. Most of them were focused on how to create a QR code. Maybe when you create the QR code, you can capture some basic analytics that shows how many scans were there or where are they from. That's all there was. There was not really that much of a resolution in terms of what it could potentially lead to, right? And we want to create a complete engagement platform, right? The way I think about this is that if you take a mobile device today, what are the communication channels that are there on the mobile device? You have your text messages, you have your calls, you have the email, and then you have through the camera, the physicality or that's where the scanning of QR code really happens, right? These are the four big pillars in many ways that I think about communication, the way you communicate with the consumer on the mobile device. And you take any of those other, the calls, the text messages, or the emails, each of those communication channels have become massive $1 trillion businesses, $1 trillion TAMs, and each of them have multi-billion-dollar companies focusing on whether it's email, automating email management, or automating text and text messaging like a NetIntel or a MailChimp for email, or you have Twilios managing for calls, etc. But for QR, there is really nothing, and that's really what we wanted to build. And to be able to build that, you have to be able to think beyond the tacticalness of creating a simple scan QR code, but talk about when you scan that QR code, where does it land, right? Is the end journey, can you continue to manage that? And what we've built in our stack is the ability to manage the end destination, right? Do you want to generate a form and collect data? We have launched our own forms. If are you a marketer and you want to be able to create a simple multi-link page, you can create your own multi-link page. Do you want to just have different landing pages inside your QR code lands to? We can do that. So what we've been reimagining is what QR codes can actually lead to, rather than just look at it as a 2x2 grid, right? For example, one of the things you learned is that a lot of small direct-to-consumer brands which have reimagined whether they actually really need a full-baked website. For example, if you're making cookies and you have the ability to create and you want to put a QR code on your box of cookies and shipping it out. In the past, you needed to buy a GoDaddy domain. You wanted to basically go to Wix or a Squarespace, build your own website, point them in that direction, all that and more, right? Now it's not like that. Now you create a QR code, they create a landing page. That's all. We have a WYSIWYG editor, which allows you to create the simple drag and drop. And they use the combination of this QR code and the simple one landing page that we essentially provide as a simple way of creating their digital identity. And that's the power of what we see, which QR codes can really do, which is enhance the experience of what a single small brand can really do without actually going through the entire plethora of options that are out there.
I feel like QR codes being integrated with social commerce are also a big unlock that really hasn't been explored much yet. And we already know that whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's WhatsApp, whether it's Facebook, they all have QR codes built in for connecting. So if I want to connect to another WhatsApp user, I don't give them my name. I pull up my QR code in WhatsApp. They pull up their QR code scanner in their WhatsApp, and they scan my QR code, and boom, we're instantly connected on WhatsApp. And it's the same on LinkedIn and multiple other social platforms. But what I don't see too much of yet, and I'm trying to think if I've even seen it at all, is that, for example, WhatsApp, not that big in the US yet, but certainly WhatsApp is the norm in Mexico. It's the norm in India. It's the norm in across LATAM, Southeast Asia. It is like the norm of communication. And then, of course, WeChat within China is the dominant player. Right. But we're starting to see full-blown commerce experiences become available inside WhatsApp. Right. To where, so again, like you say, you're a small business owner, you make cookies, you make cupcakes, whatever it is, then you could put a QR code in there that automatically connects them to your commerce experience available in WhatsApp, to where it can 100%. Literally open up the option to purchase. Okay, do you want a half a dozen? Do you want a dozen? Do you want 3 dozen? Boom. And select the flavor directly within the WhatsApp interface, execute the transaction. You can connect WhatsApp to Stripe, for example, to manage the payments. And you can have that all managed directly within the social experience, but triggered via a QR code. And I feel like that punching through into a headless experience, which I consider a social experience, a headless experience, it's just another head to go along with your self-service e-commerce website. But I feel, again, QR codes can become the essential bridge between content or physical experiences and the commerce side of the equation.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree with everything that you've said. In fact, one of the interesting examples that I remember is, and there are so many ways to kind of smoothen this, right? There's a brand which is using a QR code on the outside packaging, outside of the packaging, where you scan it, it basically showed you reviews of its customers, because their understanding or their hope was, if you're scanning it outside the package, you have not become a customer yet. And then they use a different QR code inside the package, because that means you're already a customer, and you scan that, it directed them to the e-commerce site to place another order, because that's the way they looked at it. And they're two different QR codes with very different use cases.
Yes.
And so what you said totally accords with the way we think about it. And when you think about those experiences, there's a lot of trial and error that goes into it. And the power of having a dynamic QR code platform is that even after the QR code is really printed and posted, you can just keep running A/B test experiments to say, okay, let me try to do this, let me try to do that. and see what yields you get and what kind of returns you get. And depending on that, you'll be able to make better and better decisions about engagement, understanding what drives daily value for your customer.
And I think there's also an overlooked opportunity when it comes to unique barcodes for specific markets or specific batches of product or specific sizes of product or specific use cases of a product. I'm thinking even for wine, for just as one example,
Yeah.
right? We have vintages of wine, we have regions where the grapes were grown and harvested, we have the season, we have all these things associated with a given bottle of wine. And I feel like that isn't really being exploited to its fullest potential, because if you could scan a QR code and you could literally pop up a video of the vintner and the vineyard manager, for example, talking about that specific location, those specific grapes, that season, that harvest, that flavor profile of that bottle of wine, this it's not actually that hard to do, right? Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, they're only going to have to make, for each variety and for each season, they're only going to have to make one video, and it could only
Yeah.
be it might only be a 2-minute video, but that can link to a YouTube video, for example, or it could link to a Wistia video, or it could link to almost anything. That then, if they wanted to make a D2C play, they could try to put someone on a subscription plan for that wine as a direct way to connect with that consumer outside of simply the aggregator retailer sales channels.
Got
And
it.
so I think that there's space to tell the historical context of products that have a lot of history behind them, especially legacy brands that are 100 years old or 200 years old or whatever it is. I just feel like, again, that if marketers were bringing all the creativity that they try to bring to everything else that they do, if they tried to bring that to the interactive experiences associated with their packaging, we could get to a totally different place with the merging of online and offline.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree with everything you've said so far. I think there is a lot of opportunity to enhance the experiences of what QR codes can really do. It really depends on just the imagination of it. I think the other point that I really wanted to add here is that GS1, which is the global standards organization which manages barcodes, you might be familiar with it, but they launched a new 2027 initiative with the intent of making this new GS1 link, which is the new standard, where all barcodes are going to be replaced by QR codes by 2027, which is
I did not hear
amazing.
that. Wow.
Yeah. So all barcodes by 2027 are going to be replaced by QR codes for exactly the reasons that you mentioned. So it's a multi-trillion-dollar business, because so far barcodes are very limited by the stand that you need a actual specific physical device to do it, and they don't carry them on a data. Consumers can't really do anything. So by 2027, the idea there is that QR codes will be replaced. Even now, if you take any packaged food, you will see a barcode, and right next to that a QR code. You won't need that anymore. There'll just be a QR code. All the POS systems will be updated to be able to scan the QR code, and these are unique ones where all the batch number, all the GS1 numbers that you require for will automatically be integrated, and the same QR code, when it's scanned by a consumer, can do a marketing or an engagement experience. So we're already moving in that direction, where once barcodes by 2027, another 2 years, you'll start seeing all physical products being replaced will start shipping with QR codes. So it's a huge shift, and there's a lot of exciting stuff to be essentially to be built. And I think some of the use cases that we talked about today, it's all only a matter of time.
Before they become the norm. Listen, is there anything on your radar that you don't do yet with your platform that you'd like to do? Or is there anything your customers are asking you to do that you don't yet offer in your platform that over, say, the next 6, 12, 18 months that you'd like to bring into the platform? What's on your radar?
I think GS1 is one big exciting thing. I think, like I said, I think there's a lot of interchangeability that's happening between barcodes and QR codes, and everybody's really familiar with it. They call it the Sunrise Project, and I think for the right reasons. I think there's a lot of interesting use cases that are emerging out of it, and as we unlock ourselves, we will see some very interesting stuff emerge over the next couple of months. So that's something that we're really keenly focused on. That's one. The second thing I think is broadly the way you think about QR codes is we're trying to build some infrastructure layer to it, right? There is QR codes that can be built in a very interesting manner. But there are a lot of interesting applications that can be built on top of QR codes. I think we are thinking about a few of them specifically, which is hard for me to mention right now. But I think the other thing that we really want to be able to do is, can we provide an API infrastructure layer which enables someone like, for example, Jason, who understands the market really well, say, hey, I want to do an application like maybe an augmented reality experience for brands, or maybe something which integrates inventory with social commerce style like you talked about. But instead of reinventing the wheel, can I take your APIs and be able to build that social commerce angle? So that's the other layer that we are really looking to build, which is, can we make it open-ended to the extent where someone, an agency, seasoned, experienced folks such as you can come and build an application on top of it and build it for the world. So those are some of the ideas that we are really working on.
Wow. Exciting times. And how do you guys make your money? Is it a per use charge? Is it a platform fee, like almost like SaaS fee? Are there
Yeah.
tiers? How do you guys charge? If I was a retailer and I wanted to come use your platform for marketing, maybe I wanted to use it for packaging, maybe I want to use it for different things. How do you guys make your money?
Yeah, we're a classic SaaS business. We're a software as a service. They pay us platform fee for using it. We are a tiered pricing plans, and those tiered pricing plans are based on both features and on based on consumption. Features, because as you go up market, you have very specific needs which small businesses don't have, and consumption is again number of QR codes, number of users, number of calls that you make in terms of APIs, etc.
Wow. Very exciting. Very exciting. And if people want to get a hold of you, I'll drop your LinkedIn link into the show notes. I'll also drop your website link into the show notes as well, Uniqode with a Q. Other than that, if people want to speak to you about QR codes and what the QR code opportunity is for their business, what's the best way to reach out and get a hold of you?
I think my email address, sharat@uniqode.com.
That's
Reach out to
easy.
me. That's very easy. And I always respond to my email. I'm always on top of my email. Please do reach out if you have wild ideas. Some of the exciting ideas that I think you, Jason, mentioned was fantastic. I think we'd love to talk to people like you to see if there are ways in which we can collaborate, build interesting products, and more importantly, take our product to the right customers. So please reach out to me.
I love it. Now, as we come down to the end of our time together, this is where I get to flip the script. I get to hand the microphone over to you. I get to let you ask me one question, any question you like. It could be personal or professional. Mr. Sharat Potharaju from Uniqode, what is your question for me today?
I would love to know how you started down the idea of building this podcast. I think I really enjoyed our conversation today, and I know it takes a lot of effort to get this going, and I'm sure it's not just about generating business. It must be more of a passion project for you. So, can you talk a little bit about how did you get down the path of building this, and is the intent here to build brand, build business, or is it just purely fun?
It's all of the above, but originally it started out as two main things. First of all, a love letter back to the industry from me, because this industry has given me an amazing, incredible life over the last 25 years, and I'm incredibly grateful for the life I've been able to build with my friendships and my partnerships. And some of my best friends in the entire world I met through this industry. So I'm
Yes.
incredibly grateful, and I wanted to give back in some meaningful way. And this felt like a meaningful way that I could do that and give people a platform to talk about what they do, and just give them a way, a venue where they could tell their stories. That was the first thing. Secondarily, there's three primary things. That's the first thing. Second thing is, it's very difficult to get conversations with people in our industry that you're new to, that they don't know you, because they think automatically if you reach out and you message them on LinkedIn and you ask, hey, let's sit down for a virtual coffee and talk shop and chew the fat, 9 times out of 10, they're going to assume you're trying to sell them something. And so their reaction 9 times out of 10 is, no, not interested. Hey, I'll talk to you later. But with a podcast, it automatically gives you a reason to have a conversation. And I think
Right.
that is really important. And it gives me an opportunity to continue to learn from the
Mm.
best in the industry. I know quite a bit, but I don't know everything. And I certainly don't know everything about every topic related to commerce. And so there are a lot of subject matter experts out there that know stuff I have no idea about. And so it's a
Right.
great opportunity to learn and extend that learning to my audience. Then they really, when I think about building brand, when I think about trying to have credibility, when I think about trying to have conversations that are meaningful in the space, it's very difficult to do that outside of some type of long form medium like a podcast, because
Mm.
it's, you really only on a podcast can you dig deep into some of these topics, deep enough. And I've recently, as of late 2024, I started putting out some master series episodes, which were multiple episodes on a singular topic. So might be a 3-episode series or a 4-episode series. So that gives me a way to go even deeper onto certain topics that I think deserve a little more time, a little more attention, deserve a little more evangelism around them. And so for me, this kind of kills multiple birds with one stone. And the final thing is that when I first started my podcast, it's not true now, but when I first started my podcast, there was no one out there that looked like me, in the sense that there were lots of good e-commerce podcasts, but they were all focused on digital marketing or merchant stories. They
Mm.
really didn't come at their content from a technical and operational bent. Now, there's been
Mm.
podcasts that have come since then. There's the Operators podcast, there's a few others. But when I started out, there was no one sort of taking the angle that I was taking. And I thought, if there's not content out there that I would love to consume, then why don't I just start creating it instead? And so that
Mm.
that was one of my big motivators, was I don't really see anybody out there doing this the way that I would love to hear this stuff discussed. And that was a really big part of it for me.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Are you a B2B or D2C e-commerce merchant? Then head over to greenwoodconsulting.net to learn how we can help you scale your business.